So what, guys, what's new? What's going on?
We're rolling. This is episode number 9 of the Deconstruction Podcast. This is brought to you by Jobtable, the simplest construction software on the planet, helping trades simplify the way they work and grow and manage their business. Just want to put it out there. We do have a Black Friday promo going on right now until the end of this month. You can get the service subscription for only $9 a month for the first 3 months. So if you are considering a software, looking to increase your efficiency, productivity, do check out jobtable.com. Could be a good time to. So, how are we doing?
Don't miss out on that deal. It's the best deal of the year.
Sir. Right, so a few items on the docket today that we wanted to discuss. I know, Johnny, we were talking about this off camera, and I feel this is a subject we frequently talk about as business owners. It's a very important one, and just the topic of scheduling, management, and how that relates to construction. And so start off with that, scheduling and time management. I think this is such a big opportunity for contractor. I think contractors get a very bad rap a lot of times on this topic, the idea of scheduling. I can't tell you how many times I've had a contractor supposed to be at my house at, let's say, 8, 9 a.m. and they come in the afternoon, or maybe don't even come that day, and it's kind of just like accepted in this industry for some reason. So Johnny, kick it off. What's going on here with this time management?
I think we touched base on this a couple episodes ago. One of my biggest pet peeves as well. Just again, it's a respect for everybody's time, everybody's schedule, right? I feel like a lot of times, contractors tell you, I'm going to be there on Monday at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. rolls around. People have, going to work late that day so that they could be there to open up, walk them through something. 8 a.m. comes, nobody's there. They're texting, they're calling the contractor. They're not getting back to them. Lose a half a day's work, the homeowner, and then, a day later, 2 days later, the contractor ends up calling them back. Oh, sorry, I got busy on a job, and it just comes back to like that professionalism, right? Where it's like everybody's time is just as important as yours, right? Nobody's setting the schedule but you. So if you're saying Monday 8 a.m., you set the schedule, right? Like you should be there on time, and it kills me, right? It truly does. Even for my employees, I say the same thing. Like 7 a.m. start time is 7 a.m. That doesn't mean 7:05 you're rolling through the door and you go into the job box and you're starting to put on your hard hat and your boots, right? That means that you're outside at 6:40, 6:45, whether some guys are having their coffee, they're having a cigarette. Like 7 a.m. is like work time, right? So to me, when it comes to scheduling, and getting back to like efficiency and being a man of your word, you give somebody a time, you got to stick to that, right? And even to further it more, if it's something that you forgot about something, then that just means that you're not using a tool, right? When you schedule something, that should go in a book, that should go in, some type of, your calendar, right? So that you can reference that calendar on a Saturday, on a Sunday, and know exactly what your Monday looks like, what your Tuesday looks like. So if somebody tells you, hey, can you come and look at this? You can pull up your calendar, right? And in that moment, you can let them know, can I be there at that time? Yes or no, right? And I think that's also why too, with Jobtable, I think that's why the calendar and the syncing of the calendar and having your team members on there is so that you can see where everybody is. And that's one of the things that I feel like it lacks a lot in this industry is just people being a man of their word. People telling you, I'm going to be there at this time, right? I always say it. I always look at those contractors. If they say, I'm going to be there at 9 a.m. and they're sitting outside at 8:55, that's a very good sign, right? That's very good sign. That means these people are prompt. They care about what they're doing, respect your time, and they respect theirs, right? So, I feel like scheduling is huge. As a contractor, the way you carry yourself, being a man of your word, everything, right? And again, I'm going to say it one last time. Nobody's setting that schedule. You are the one that told them you will be there on that day at that time, right? Commit to it.
It's so frustrating. Me and Johnny run a really tight ship at iPlum. We have a lot of employees, a lot of jobs, overlapping jobs, and ultimately, if we don't meet our schedules, we can get back charged, right? It just everything cascades. It's just a disaster, right? Because now the next job's getting pushed over. So, I think me and him are more frustrated than anybody, especially when we hire contractors to do work at our own homes and we see guys being tardy, because it can easily be solved. A lot of it is just like mismanagement of their own time. And just like Johnny was saying, a simple schedule using a software where you can ultimately plug in your entire week, few weeks, however many crews you have, you can schedule them. And obviously things happen in construction, but if you have to make any, minor adjustments, tweaks, your guys on site are getting that update immediately. You're updated on your end in the office. And honestly, you're going to, and if something's going to be late or a job's going to run a little longer than expected, you can now call the customer and let them know, like, hey, listen, we had a little mishap on this job and you're going to do it early, and then they'll respect you for it, right? How many times have not only us building homes, but we've heard from other people where their framer doesn't show up for 3 days. They can't even get them on the phone, right? And it's frustrating. And because of that, and we've given many examples on this podcast already of guys losing work because of referrals that are not coming their way that they could have gotten, right? So easy fix, guys.
Like you said, the call if you're going to be early, but even if you're going to be late, like that's fine too, as long as you let the customer know, right? Let the client know, hey, I'm going to be late.
Absolutely.
That's all it takes.
Don't call at 8:10, when you're supposed to be there at 7:30, right? That's the biggest one, right? And it comes back to professionalism, right? Like on our last episode, we spoke about this, how you carry yourself, right? How you land more work. I know so many amazing tradesmen that are just incredible at the craft that they do. I'm very hesitant when I'm asked, "Oh, do you know a roofer? Do you know an aluminum guy? Do you know a paver?" Sometimes I'm hesitant to refer them, even though their work is amazing, because you're going to deal with the bullshit of, them not showing up, right? They say they're going to show up and they don't show up, and then now I'm getting a call from the person that asked me for a referral, like, "Hey, where's your buddy? Can you call your buddy? He's not answering me," right? I fucking hate that. Like, guys, get your shit together, right? Like, it's simple enough. Get a fucking schedule, right? Write it down, move by it, okay? That's one thing that will, little change like that will literally change your business. It will change the way people look at you, the way they respect you, right? And at the end of it, you will see that you start getting way more referrals, start trusting in you more, because it gets back to that, you're a man of your word, right? If you say you're going to show up, you're going to show up. And like Charlie said too, you can tell somebody, "Oh, this will take me a day." Okay, there was a mishap, right? Or something happened on the job that, they didn't foresee, right? So something took a little bit longer. No problem, right? They'll accept that, right? But what they won't accept, what a lot of people are going to get frustrated to a point that they never want to work with you again, is, you say it takes a day, you show up late, you work for a couple hours, you leave, you come back at the end of the day, work for an hour, don't show up for 3 days. It cannot run a business like that, guys. It's all about efficiency. It's all about being on time. It's all about communication and the way you carry yourself.
I think it's very important to look at it from my perspective, right? So, for example, I'm not a contractor. I am a client of a residential contractor. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I am like the perfect client for a residential customer. Why do I say that? Is because I'm someone who appreciates value. I'm not going to go with the lowest price quote. I just want, the best value, best bang for my buck. At an invoice, I pay it right away. I'm not that guy to not pay or whatever. So with that being said, clients that fit that description, how to lose clients like me is not showing up or being late without giving me a call. So, maybe just hearing it from someone like me, because this happened to me many times. And again, it's so frustrating because a lot of these guys that suck at communication are really good at what they do. And if they can just somehow tweak that small part of their flow, like they would be doing so much better.
People think that price is like the end all and be all when it comes to quoting and just doing work for people. But a lot of times what they don't realize is that if you're punctual and your quality of work is very high, the higher that standard goes up, the lower the money matters. And people are willing to pay a higher price and sometimes won't even look at whatever your price is just because they're so satisfied with your service and they know what they're going to get from you. But again, that comes with being reliable and that comes with being tried and tested and coming through for them, right?
I feel like this is one of those things that we're saying this stuff, but it's I can see it being one of those things that are easier said than done, especially for someone who's just so used to just working in this way. So like some like practical things that you think these guys can do to like just really change. You got to almost like rewire the way they operate in a way, because it's not something it's like, okay, I'm gonna pick up tomorrow and just like start being on time. Like I feel like it has to be a process.
Like I said, there's obviously things that are out of your control, right? Sometimes jobs run a little longer than expected, and there's so many variables in a construction project. So we all know that. But control the things you're able to control. So what do I mean by that? How much time are you spending doing your quotes, your invoices? You're calling your guys for schedule, you're texting them on WhatsApp, whatever the case may be. How much time are you actually wasting doing those things? You need to tighten up on all of those. So by doing that, you actually give yourself more time to actually go to the job on time, get the job done properly, and go to the next one, quote the next one, price the next one, right? So how do you do that? By using a simple software, right? And that can be through Jobtable, any other software, whatever, but use something to organize your company and organize your time.
One thing I do, like, again, I'm not a contractor, but this applies to, I think, any person, any business, right? Like I live and breathe by my calendar. Right. To me, there's nothing more valuable than my time. And I look at it the same way. Like, if I have a meeting with someone on my calendar, as much as I value and respect my time, I just as much value and respect their time. So if I'm not going to, that schedule or that time that's in the calendar, that's, first of all, that rarely happens because it's in the calendar. And if something arises where it can happen, like you said, like that person is getting notified like very well in advance. My suggestion would be, one, you have to use a calendar. Like you can't use like a notebook. You can't use you need an actual calendar that is like in your hands, on your phone, whatever calendar it is you want to use. And like actually use it. Like if you have a job booked tomorrow, if you have a meeting, like put it in your calendar, put as much in your calendar as possible.
But live by it.
It's really live by it. Even if you have like tasks to do, right? Like I even put that in my calendar. If I have to spend like 2 hours to do some sort of task that requires thought or thinking, like that block of time is in my calendar. That tells me that like, during this time, 10 to 12, I have to do this thing. So
Sorry to interrupt. I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago about this exact same topic, and he's incredible at his craft. He was just telling me his pain points, and this whole thing with scheduling came up, and I know because I use him. I referred him to many people, and it's always the same story with him. Now, what a lot of them I notice what they say is the reason that they're always late or it's hard to stay on schedule is because they're like, what we call yes man, right? They try to help out. They have good intention, right? So they're on a job, they get a call, hey, I got a problem. They want to help the person out, right? So the intention is good, right? But because now the job that they're on, that client's going to suffer, right? And then they go out to that job, right? Because they're trying to help them out. And they do a little bit and they say they'll be back, but then they don't pick up their phone or they don't text them back for a few days. And that person's kind of like lingering on them because they've already started the job. They don't want to get somebody else on it. What happens is it's like a house of cards. It comes tumbling down, right? So by you trying to be a good person, right? And I hear this excuse a lot, and I do call it an excuse because intention is good, right? And a lot of times they're yes men. They're trying to do much in a day, right? Or they're trying to please too many people. And that's where a schedule and living by that schedule is so relevant because they get that call, they can look at that schedule look, Charlie said it on the last episode. We don't like to turn down work, but if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I have this issue," I'll look at the schedule. If there's something that has a timeline where there's a buffer to it, okay, I'll move some guys around and I'll make it happen. But if it's something where it's a Friday, all the guys are out, it's the end of the day, but we have to meet a milestone. I'll tell the client straight on the phone, like, look, can't get out there today. Tomorrow they're busy, but we'll be there on the Monday. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what
I can
Costa's
do.
saying.
Yeah.
It's respecting their time and respecting your own time. And you can't just make empty promises, right? So you're not letting them down. Say, listen, I want to do this job for you. I'm going to be there, but these are the times I'm available, right? Respect has to go both ways. You can't make these empty promises.
Does it work for you or does it not? You're better off saying that than, yeah, no problem, I'll get it done. Now you've just let down two clients because now you're leaving a job that client's relying on you because you've given them a schedule that you'll finish by the end of the day. You've left that job, so you're obviously not finishing that job. You go to another one because you're trying to help them out. Then once you get into that other one, if everybody, that's listening knows construction, you're going to get there. They're going to tell you it's a little job. That little job actually entails of, very complicated things where it might be a day and a half, 2 days, 3 days to make a repair like that, or whatever the situation is. But what ends up happening is you end up letting multiple people down, right? So that's why, like, living by a schedule, I can't stress that enough. It's one of the most important features, right? Like, you want to grow your business, you want respect, you want referrals, you want that business to keep evolving. You need to stick by a schedule.
Other thing too to recognize, right, is punctual is one of those things that allow you to charge more. Like, personally, I have no problem paying a bit more for a contractor that's providing good service. And what's good service? That's literally just, you say you're going to be here at 8, be here at 8. Communicate. Like, these are such easy things that can increase your margins by a considerable amount.
And I get back to, even going through building processes myself, right? And even Charlie going through it right after me. For certain people, and I'm always asked this, and I'll explain, like my glass railing guy, the guy I referred to everybody. I tell everybody off the bat, he's probably going to be one of the most expensive guys that are going to quote it. But the one thing I'll tell you is his measurements are bang on. If there's ever a mistake, he's all over it, right? Very professional, very punctual, right? And the quality of work that you get from him is second to none, right? So when I got my quotes for my house, right, he, out of 4 guys, he was the most expensive. I didn't even hesitate, right? Because those railings, they fall into, like, the inspection, right? For my final inspection, they fall into when I'm allowed to move in, right? So you got to look at, a lot of times you got to look at what comes after that, right? So to those homeowners or to any of the contractors that think like, oh, but I'm the cheapest, the homeowner's going to go with me, or the builder or whoever, a lot of times that's not what they're looking at. They're looking at if you can maintain a schedule, because you might have saved them $5,000 compared to the other guy, right? But if you've delayed them on the project due to your own negligence and not being able to keep a schedule, right? Cost impacts could be way greater than saving that $5,000 or $10,000, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the one thing I can say wholeheartedly is anybody I've referred my glass railing guy to, the guy is punctual. You pay for what you get. I never get a complaint. The one thing they say is, yeah, he was the highest, but man, like, the guy knocked it out of the park. And guess what? Then they're referring it to somebody else. And that same, hey, he's not going to be the cheapest, but you want somebody that's going to do good work. And, when he says it's going to be done, it's going to be done. That's him. People are willing to pay for that now, right?
It's like the law of attraction, right? You you attract what you project out. So if you're projecting out always being late, not being punctual, probably going to land clients that are going to be late paying you. You're going to have to chase down checks. Whereas if you're projecting the positive, the punctual, the communication, you're attracting clients self, which again, not putting myself on a pedestal, but I've never not paid when I got an invoice, so if you want to attract good clients, quality clients that pay on time, that pay premium, communicate, and you got to have a schedule. It's very simple.
Our plumbing company, and Johnny, I think you'll agree with this. We're the perfect example of that. I mean, when we started the company 15 years ago, I think we might have spent $300-400 in advertising, and ever since then, it's all been word of mouth, right? But in construction, it's one of the most cutthroat businesses. You're only as good as your last job. So it's not just like show up and do a great job once. I mean, to build a relationship with the customers that'll keep calling you back, it's like you got to be on point every single fucking job, right? But by doing so, you now get away from having to advertise, and people just know who you are. So it's like a job's coming down the pipeline. It's like, oh, well, should we give it to these guys for $5,000 less, or should we call Johnny and Charlie? It's a fucking no-brainer. We're calling Johnny and Charlie because that $5,000 is money well spent when we know that it's going to be in cruise control and these guys are going to knock it out of the park. No questions asked. But that has to be earned, right?
For sure. Use a schedule. Communicate, respect your time, respect others' time. And I think if you do that, you're going to see tremendous improvement in whatever you do. Leave it at that. Switching gears, guys. Next thing, we've been talking about this a lot amongst ourselves and even with clients recently. When you're growing a company, adding employees, one thing you got to think about is culture. What kind of culture do you want in your company? What kind of people do you want to attract? What kind of, it's culture. It's an umbrella, and it's something that I think you have to be very mindful of that when you're hiring. You don't want to just hire kind of anyone that comes through the door, because that could result in a clash of personalities and could, work against you with productivity in so many different ways. So you guys who started off you two in a truck doing service, now with 30 plus employees, whatever the number is, you guys know a lot about this and building a culture. And from what I see, from the outside looking in, you guys have created and developed one of the most amazing company cultures I've ever seen. So let's speak about that.
You go. You take.
I'll start. I mean, we're both owners, but me and Johnny obviously deal with very different parts of the company, and I've always kind of been the one tasked to manage the guys for the most part. Well, I'll start by saying this: our first two hires that were made 15 years ago, and I would say probably 13 and a half, 14 years ago, are still with us today. And one thing we pride ourselves on is always being on a human level. Me and Johnny have never put ourselves above anybody else, and it starts with that in the interview process. It's one of the first things I tell every single guy that walks through the door, whether they get the job or not, and I let them know that look, you come and work at iPlum, I will never put myself above you, and I look at you as me and you are on an even playing field. You come and do a job for me, and at the end of the week, I pay you for that job. We're even, Steven, and we start again next week, right? You don't have a job without me, and I can't run this company without you. And I think by looking at our company in that way and treating the guys that way, I don't ever think that they feel intimidated by us. Now, with that being said, that could be taken in a negative way. Well, I want my guys to fear me. I know me and Johnny have had lots of discussions about that over the years, because me and him come from, the last of the old school where we had hammers and bricks thrown at us for just bringing someone the wrong tool, sometimes the right tool. They just forgot which tool they asked for, and you still get something thrown at you. And that was normal, right? And again, that was the culture back then, which was accepted, and I'm very grateful for it. But also, with that being said, I think you have to evolve, and you have to kind of do better than they did. Just like when you have kids, your hope is that your kids are going to grow up and be better than you, right? A better version of you one day. So, number one, it's like just having the respect for your employees. I think it goes such a long way, because the second you do that, they trust you. Another thing that we've always been very upfront with our guys about is, look, you need anything. If you're short on money, you're short on your rent, if somebody's bothering you at work, if somebody's bothering you outside of work, come to us. We'll help you. The door's always open. Me and Johnny, like, we come from nothing. We come from very, very humble beginnings. So if there's anybody that can relate with these guys that are trying to, get into the trades and build a life and a family, we're the guys that are going to help you do it, because that's where we're from, right? We're the same people, essentially, right? So the door's always open, having the trust for your guys. And then I think understanding your guys more than they understand themselves. And what I mean by that is, one of the jobs that I've been tasked with, it's probably one of the most important things that I do, is understanding who the individual employees that I have are. And I'm not only talking about skill, that's a big one, but also personality, right? Who works well with who? Is this guy a hothead? He might be the best plumber you've ever seen. He might be fast and get the job done in an amazing way, but nobody can work with the fucking guy. So so like you have to, that balance. Is he a guy that we can keep and we can work into the company somehow? Is he a good service guy that he'll be good on his own? So it's understanding all the different personalities and how they mesh together and how they work within your company to essentially make you the most money so you can make them the most money and be successful for a long period of time.
I think you touched like pretty much all the bases there, Charlie. Yeah, we talk about this a lot, and like Charlie said, we were brought up in an old school environment. When I started plumbing, I was making less than $10 an hour, right? Obviously it's a lot different today. I find a lot of people, today they feel privileged, like they feel, without earning, they feel like, they're due something. When we hire guys, one of the first things I tell them is a family over here, right? Like when you wear that crest on your shirt, you're representing us. You know what I mean? The owners, yourself, your crew members, right? And that's why I say it truly is a family dynamic. And one thing I can say growing up in the trades, and maybe not everybody feels like this, but construction is a harsh environment, right? Like you're using your body, you're using your hands. It's very physical, right? In and day out, right? Rain, snow, shine. You got to wake up early in the morning. It takes a toll on somebody, right? So what I always say is construction is a bitch of an environment. Okay, so it's all on what you make of it. So if you have a good environment and the job is tough, it makes the day pass by so much better, right? You actually got to smile coming to work, right? You got to smile while you're working. About 4 weeks ago, we had like a catastrophe on a job, right? And it was kind of like all hands on deck, right? Like, we had a crew of 14 guys there to basically, it's a problem. Let's just call it. And we started at like 6 a.m. and everybody worked until like 10:30 at night. Okay. Not one person left there. Everybody was tired. Everybody was like, they were beat to shit. Okay. But at the end, everybody was smiling. Right. And why is that? Because everybody treats everybody with respect. Everybody understands that everybody's there for the same common goal. Right? Everybody's helping each other out. Oh, lunchtime comes. Hey, do you need this? Do you need that? Whether it's a foreman, whether it's an apprentice, whether it's the site super, whether it's, there was a safety guy from the company we were working for. And the guy was he was a little bit crazy, like he was overstepping his boundaries, right? But everybody treated everybody with respect. It was a long ass day of a lot of physical labor, and we got through it. And like I said, at 10:30 p.m. when everybody was walking out. You got a crew of 14 guys walking out. Everybody's smiling, everybody's high-fiving, you know, and I remember looking at even the foreman, and you know, all the apprentices were there, and it's like, all right, guys, you know what? Tomorrow let's have a later start. It's like, no. We're gonna, you know what? We'll come in tomorrow at 7 a.m., right? That's what culture does, right? So start respecting your employees. Start treating them with, you know, the utmost respect, treating them like family members, right? They're there to help you, right? So if you're gonna degrade, if you're gonna talk down, if you're gonna think you're above, you know, the people that are there to be your right-hand man, the people that are there to pass you tools, the people that are there to, you know, be the eyes behind your head, what do you think's gonna happen, right? If you're degrading them, they're not gonna, like, we all are human, right? We all have a sense of like, you know, if you're not going to treat me with respect, fuck you, right? I don't care if you're my boss. I don't care if you're my foreman, right? This
John,
is not 1970.
John, you touched on something that it's like you hit the nail on the head when you said like just like the family aspect to it. Like that's a word that we've always like thrown around when we talk about culture in the company. And one thing, it just kind of like made me think of something when Johnny said family. By creating that kind of like family dynamic or environment, whatever you want to call it, what ends up happening is when you do get a bad apple, right? You make a bad hire who initially you think, oh, this guy looks good. He's going to be a good plumber or whatever. A couple weeks goes by, a month goes by. And then what's going to happen is I have my foremans calling me or employees calling me and they say, hey, you know this guy? He's a fucking problem, right? He's coming in late. He's strolling in late. He's taking longer breaks. And he looks at us when we complain about him or when we say something to him, his reaction will be, what the fuck do you care? Who cares? It's not your money. It's about, you know, let's all take a longer break. Let's all come in late. What do you guys care? Right? You guys don't own the company. But because now we've built the trust with our employees to the point that they don't look at us as owners sometimes, right? Like obviously we have to step in that role and we have to discipline sometimes when guys are getting out of hand. But for the most part, we've created this dynamic where they trust us and respect us, that they almost look at us like we're just co-workers. So they'll call us and it's because they feel disrespected. Like they're being taken advantage of because they look at it like, hey, this is my company. You know, I'm going to represent this company to my best ability. And this guy's coming in here and he's fucking it up and I don't like it. Right. And we reward guys for that. Right. So anyways, I just want to jump in, John, because I thought that was like the word family is really what encompasses iPlum, you know, and it may not work for everybody, but it definitely has worked for us.
Amazing. And, you know, so coming back to culture, right? So, you know, culture, what it's comprised, to have culture, you need people, right? So the first thing, you know, and again, not a contractor, but I've hired well over 100 employees in other businesses. And this can actually be a whole nother topic, the hiring and onboarding. That's a whole nother thing. But when I hire employees, the very first call I have with them has nothing at all to do with work. Like I'm just trying to understand who they are, where they come from, what they're looking for, human to human. I don't even want to talk about work. And so the reason I do that is because I want to work with people that are just, we connect. You know, I can talk how I talk. You know, you don't got to beat around the bush around things, and you got to get the guard down and kind of see who they are. And so I personally find that to be very helpful, but I think you helpful to build the culture that you want. Because again, I see a lot of guys who are just hiring people who come through the door, right? They need a job done. You hire someone, and like Charlie, to your point, and I've seen it within your company, right? Is you can have bad seeds that cause a lot of problems. It's like a cancer that spreads, right? And so you got to nip those. And the way, or the best way to kind of mitigate those bad seeds is by really taking the hiring process seriously and like really understanding who's coming in and you know, looking at it from that angle.
Yeah, to minimize the ones that will slip through the cracks, right?
Yeah.
There'll always be some.
Always. To add on culture, that
thing other than it sets the dynamic for your whole company. That's it. 100%. I want to add that in. Company culture is massive.
For sure. switching gears again, Charlie, you wanted to speak about policies and safety
Yeah,
within companies.
yeah, I did, and the reason being is, obviously we're all three of us are the co-founders of Jobtable, and but me and Johnny have obviously operated iPlum for over 15 years now. So we've kind of seen both sides of the coin. And I've been speaking with a lot of Jobtable users who are constantly like demanding health and safety, a health and safety section. It's not really something that we had focused on in the beginning. But with that being said, it's something that's on our radar now. So if anybody's listening, guys, we heard you loud and clear. It's being worked on, and it is going to be something that you're going to see in the near future.
Why is safety important? Like, I'm sure you have a ton of examples of having good policies and how that's either helped you or
Yeah.
shit, not good at all.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, first and foremost, safety's is one of the most important things because you're talking about people's safety, right? You're talking about men and women that have families, and so it goes without saying that's the end of the discussion right there. But with that being said, I'm also from the old school where there was no safety rules. There was no toolbox talks or any of that stuff, right? Like I'll tell a quick story. I got my arm pinned up against like a 4-inch copper pipe that we were brazing on a job site. It was on a high-rise site, and we had a piece of plywood that was literally blocking the wind, so I can braze this pipe. And the wood gave out, and it pinned my arm right up against it. And I'll never forget this. I think I was a third-year apprentice at the time. I must have been like 22 years old, 21 years old. And I pulled my arm off the pipe, and it was like string cheese. Not to gross the viewers or listeners out, but that was the severity of it. And my initial thought was, how do I hide this from my boss or my foreman so I don't get in trouble for leaving, right? And going to the hospital. And I'll never forget this. I wrapped my arm up with like a t-shirt, and I just taped it up with electrical tape. And lunchtime, I called my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I sent her a picture, and she fucking lost her mind. She said, go to the hospital right now, right? But that's just the way we thought. Like, you get a cut, you just thought that's what electrical tape was for. There's no other uses for electrical tape other than just, taping yourself up. So me and Johnny were from that extreme, right? Now, is that the right way? No, it's definitely not the right way. But I think now it's gone too far to the other side. But with that being said, it is what it is. This is, I would have never gone to the hospital and said this accident happened at work, because I know that the headache that my boss would have gotten, the paperwork that needs to be filled out. But it is a reality that is in construction today. So why are people asking for a health and safety section? Number one, because it's required. These toolbox talks, the WMIS, the fall arrest, the working at heights, all of these things are crucial documents that are needed to even step on a job site these days, right? So there's no getting around it. So if there's no getting around it, you have to dive in head first, and you have to get ahead of it. That's the way I look at it. So now, are you scrambling? Are you guys doing toolbox talks on a piece of paper and a pencil? Right? Or are you using a software to kind of like simplify the process? You make your toolbox talk sheets, you get them ready, your forms, and then they can easily be accessed and filled out once a week or once every few weeks, right? How are you storing all your employees' WMIS information and all their certifications, right? They're just in a filing cabinet somewhere in the office, and if anybody ever asks you, you're just sifting through papers. So, Costa, to answer your question, this is why people are asking us for this, because they're spending a lot of money on other sites that are dedicated to health and safety that are costing them, $400 or $500, sometimes north of $1,000 a month, right? Depending on how many people they have using them. And we feel that we've given you guys an amazing, powerful software, which is a fraction of the cost of our competitors. Right. And to us, it's better than all of them. So we also feel that we can give you guys the health and safety section that would blow all of these out of the water, and you're not going to pay an arm and a leg for it. Right. And it's needed, guys. That's the reality of it.
To bring that into Jobtable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my It's one of my best sections that I'm looking forward to for sure.
Coming soon.
Actually, I just want to add one thing actually, because it's funny because we actually just did a big presentation, me and Costa, and one of the questions was about health and safety. And we actually have some very creative Jobtable users. We have these custom forms on our site, and they were kind of created for clients to come to your website, and rather than you trying to jot down their name and address and what the service was that they're looking for on a piece of paper or typing it in your phone or text message, they can actually go to your site and there'll be this form there where they can fill out their name, number, what service they're looking for. And it's directly tied to Jobtable. So by them filling this out, they now get logged into the software as a client and you'll be notified. So one of our users actually started creating these custom forms for a toolbox and safety talk where his guys can quickly access on a URL and they can fill them out once a week and then they'll get stored in Jobtable. So we technically kind of already have a way to have a health and safety section, but compared to what it's gonna be, it's not even close.
That's actually a good point. I don't know if you see my screen here, but yeah, I actually spoke to another client who is an arborist company, and similar thing. They actually use, this is custom forms. You can basically create your own custom form. So they created a safety form that they literally use every single day. They send it to their employees because each form comes with like a URL. So they save the URL form, but actually let me show you the form here. So they send it to their employees every single day with this safety checklist and things, and all their employees have to fill it out, and it just gets logged in the system. So that's like their internal documentation and record keeping. So when I saw that, I thought, I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that, but that's a very creative way to use custom forms for sure.
John, what do you think about health and safety? I'm actually curious to know what you think, because we kind of come from the same place, right? So I don't know if you agree with what I was saying or if you had your.
It's huge, man. It's huge. It's just getting more governed. People are looking at it a lot closer, and obviously a lot of people have been hurt. A lot of people have been screwed over by companies, insurance companies, and truthfully, in the end of it, a company could give all the tools to make the workplace as safe as possible, right? But if the employee is not trained how to use it properly, they kind of like cancel each other out, right? So health and safety is extremely important, because as important as it is to come to work every day, to living, make money for their family, it's just as important as to go home, safe, right? So I feel like a lot of times, a lot of companies do things properly. They take safety really seriously, but their documentation's not in order. So God forbid something happens, everybody's always looking at the company, like the company did something wrong, right? And that's why I think the section that we will be rolling out soon is extremely helpful and important to our users, because need to have that at hand, right? So if you are a company that takes health and safety very seriously, you talk to the guys, you have your toolbox talks, but then something happens, you don't have any documentation to back that up. It's not the employee a lot of times that is looking to screw over the employer, right, or the company. It's the ministries, right? Well, show me that you did a toolbox talk, right? When was the last time your guys signed the health and safety, your company health and safety policy, right? When was the last time that was signed? When was the last time that was updated, right? And this just goes on to, as you're growing, you have a lot of growing pains, right? And the growing pains is to have this in place. And as your company evolves, for that to evolve as well, it's very tough unless like you have full-time office staff, right? So, get to the point, health and safety is extremely important, because we do work in a very it could be a dangerous environment, so to speak. So to protect the employers, because everything is always geared towards the employees, which again, because a lot of them are doing the work, I understand why it's geared towards them, but a lot of times and I hear these stories all the time where the company is being penalized, but there's nothing more that company could have done. They told a guy, don't step on this step of the ladder. If you're doing this, make sure you're tied off. If you're using this piece of equipment, make sure you have the safety glass, make sure you have the hard hat. So a lot of time it could be a negligence on the worker's part, but the only person who's paying the price, or not saying that's not the right word, because if the employee gets hurt, obviously he's paying the price, but the only people that are getting fined, employers, right?
I honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with what you said. Like, to be honest with you, like, the reality of it is we're company owners and these things affect our financials at the end of the day. So I don't think you should, I don't think you should dance around that, because I get what you're saying on a human level. It's like you don't want anyone to get hurt. But at the end of the day, too, it's like it also will hurt your business if you lose an employee, right? So it's like, how do you prepare for that? It's like I look at health and safety like taxes. There's no avoiding it now, right? It really doesn't matter whether you agree how strict it is or not. It's irrelevant. It's here. It's being governed. It's very strict. So how do you get ahead of the curve and prepare for it? That's it. That's all it comes down to.
That's what I was trying to get to. The only way to mitigate this is to have all the paperwork in order. And like you said, Charlie, there are other programs out there that do it. They're very geared towards the health and safety, but these companies know that they could charge an arm and a leg. It's the same with us, right? Like let's cut the bullshit, right? When we created Jobtable, we created it for us internally, right? When we saw how impactful it was, that's when we decided to package it up in a much, more, I want to say, more simple way to take it to market, right? Now, when we took it to market, we compared it to everybody else's. We knew what the price point could be, but we also understood that, okay, but these are guys that they're growing their company. They're this, they're how can we be the most affordable, right? Now coming out with health and safety, it's the same thing, right? We can now easily say, you know what, if you want the health and safety aspect, it's an extra $200 a month. You know what I mean? And people will still pay it, right? But the reality is a lot of these companies, they need it. So we're going to find a way to package it in a way where it's not going to be like a tremendous cost. And nobody, I feel like in this space has done that, right? Everybody's looking at it from a business aspect, which I do respect and understand. But if we can put these documents, right, and what these guys need to run the business and grow and make sure that their health and safety policies are in place and everything is up to date, and it's going to be a fraction of what you would pay to have office staff, make sure you're always up to date, or pay another program to do this for you, which is going to cost you thousands and thousands a year, right? I think it's a win-win, right? And that's why, like you said, Charlie, it's here to stay. There's nothing you can do about it. You need to have the documentation up to date, whether you're yourself, right? If you get hurt yourself in a house, and let's just say you need to call the ambulance, believe me, whether you're the owner of the company or not, they're coming after you. Right?
Very well said, man. Very well said. And honestly, it's so frustrating to me that, again, you just said it. We talk about this all the time. Think about the office staff required to sort all the paperwork that's needed for health and safety. And it's like, so many people complain, I want to use a software, but I don't have the money to do it, right? It's like, they don't regard time as money, which is crazy. And I think this whole perception of that has to change, because the amount of time that a software will save you will pay it over tenfold, if not more, right? Costa, where do you land on this?
I wanted to break this down a bit more. So I speak to, you guys are well along, right? Been in the business 15 years. But I also speak to a lot of new companies that are just starting out, maybe a couple years old. And health and safety is something they don't even think about. So what has to happen for that company to be shit, I need to get my health and safety in order?
Something bad needs to happen.
Right? Well, something bad or a governing body like here in Ontario, right? Okay. Until the Ministry of Labor shows up, right? And they hit you with a $5,000 fine, right? For not wearing, proper safety equipment, or you're on a ladder and they say, hey, where's your working at heights certificate? Working at heights, what are you talking about, right? And a lot of guys look, Costa, you're not a tradesman. You have a ladder at home. You'll climb the ladder, right? But if I start giving you the points on how to use a ladder properly, and like, we're all going to make fun of it. You know how many times it's like, get the fuck out of the way. Like, I'll straddle this ladder. You know what I mean? Like, I work on this ladder day in and day out. It happens. But the reality is, you don't understand why they're saying it, or what the do's and the don'ts are, right? When you get hit with that fine, and that fine is 5,000, 10,000, depending on what it is, how big your company is, what site you're working on, right? That's where it's going to slap you in the face. Be like, okay, well, shit, what do I do? And listen, truth be told, it happens to us.
That, I was going to say, that's ultimately how we learned.
Unfortunately,
we lived through the transition. Our business went through that transition of the old cowboy days to where it is now. So we're a good example of that, where it's like we had incidents happen. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured, but that's how we evolved, right? And the fact that there's still companies like that are actually starting out now, and they have no idea what health and safety is, or even where to start, is concerning.
I think it just gets back to, because they feel like, they're a new company, they need to start making money and everything like that. But the reality is, are you going to go and start, and I'll just say it just because it's our industry, are you going to go start a plumbing company where you're bringing a torch, right? Like you're dealing with water and fire, right? Are you going to go and start a plumbing company without, I'm going to bring it back to this, insurance, right? No way. And if you are, like, I'm sorry, man, like, you need to fucking rethink yourself, right? Have to put these things in place, because God forbid it comes, you're prepared, right? If you're not prepared, guess what? Like, you're dead in the water. Your company will close up just as fast as it started. You know what I mean? So again, getting back to this health and safety, it's huge. And it doesn't matter if it's just you in a truck, because believe me, I understand, you know how to work a ladder, you know how to work the power tools, you know that if you're grinding, you should be wearing, safety glasses and so on and so forth, right? But a lot of times you're in a rush, you need to go and do it. So if the Ministry of Labor, right, like here in Ontario, if they show up, that fine could be huge. And then you'll think to yourself, I should have just had a program, right, that was paying a couple of $100 a month, okay? And when that Ministry of Labor employee came to the site and asked me for this documentation, I pulled this documentation. Guess what? Even with the ministries, right, with the inspectors, you start to build a good rapport, right? And that's why even with city inspectors, when we do certain jobs, sometimes Charlie will call for an inspection, and the inspector knows Charlie. The reason he knows Charlie is because the type of work that we perform. So a lot of times, like, they trust us, right? So you start to build, and this all comes to, like, evolving your company to growing, right? Growing is yes, building up, building up how much you do in revenue is obviously very, very important, but it's also all those other pieces that you put in play that create that like solid foundation company, right? So again, anybody listening, okay, in the next few months, health and safety, Jobtable will have it. Guys, take a look. And again, I always say it too, even if it's not Jobtable, you guys have to have something in place. God forbid something happens.
It's one of those things. It's one of those things where it's got to slap you in the face until you realize how important it is. Like we spoke about the other day. And Charlie, to answer your question, like, what do I think? I think you just nailed the headline of, like, health and safety is as important as your taxes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you know what? Honestly, I think Johnny, I think you mentioned it, John, is like it's the last thing new companies think about, right? And I get it, man. Like, you're not concerned about fucking somebody falling off a ladder. You're concerned about getting paid for your first job, right? And actually trying to understand how to run a company. You're learning. It's a learning curve, right? So that's how I kind of see Jobtable rolling this out for these guys, where you log into Jobtable and that health and safety button is going to hit you right in the face, right? So something that you wouldn't normally actively seek out, you're going to say, oh, okay, what's this health and safety section about? And now you can see, okay, fuck, I can load up some documents here. I can organize my guys' papers. So it's a good stepping stone, right? And a good segue into that section and understanding it and learning about it, because eventually it's gonna hit you in the face and it's gonna be inevitable.
I'm excited to get into this now. Stay tuned. 2025. Boys, before I wrap it up, you guys didn't know I was going to cue this up. This is something I came across. Hey, Johnny, you're going to love this one. This is for you.
God.
You're actually going to love this one. So check this out. This is very interesting. So new subway system in Greece puts archaeological finds discovered during construction on display for passengers. So, Johnny being Greek from Thessaloniki, this is in your hometown here. So check this out. Digging a subway system, and they unearthed thousands of ancient discoveries from numerous time periods. Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you find this?
Just yesterday it came out. This article was from yesterday.
Yeah, I was
This
holding back.
podcast will now be another 3 hours. If anybody knows
The
Johnny,
history of Greece and how
Yeah.
we invented everything.
Thought you liked that one.
Incredible,
that's
man.
cool.
Crazy, huh?
It's amazing, man. Wow.
The Greeks.
Have they talked about the things that they found so far, or it's kind of
But I didn't look into it. I know it's like ancient roads, and they said over 300,000 like artifacts and finds.
unreal, man? We're gonna have to
Pretty
double
crazy.
back to that in next episode.
For real.
Man.
Boys,
It ended off.
yeah.
Any
Good.
final thoughts, guys?
That was good.
Let's keep grinding, keep working hard, working smart, and don't stop. Let's go.
And also, I know, Costa, you don't drop this one too much, but for anybody listening, please, hit that subscribe button. If you guys have anything, please drop some comments. I hope anybody who is listening finds what we're putting out, helpful. We're really trying to, help anybody just a little bit lost in the industry. Just try and, look for some guidance. And even if you have the guidance, perspectives, what we put out is truly from the heart.
And if you guys have a topic that you guys want to hear us talk about, feel free to drop that in the comments. Anything you guys, are curious about or would love for us to deconstruct, by all means, drop us a line and we'll get on it.
If someone wants to join us, you want to be a guest, let us know. We'd love to have join in on these discussions. So, nice. Great episode. We'll talk soon.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao.